Hello, welcome to your lesson on Tuesday, and I'm going to talk to you a bit about the domestic programmes of, well, two presidents in the end. Starting with Kennedy and his brain's trust. Kennedy became president on a tide of optimism that this new, fresh-faced looking president was going to bring a new America to bear. I suppose one comparison between the two, which were as a similarity, is that both Kennedy and Johnson's presidencies were kind of overshadowed by foreign policy, the domestic sphere. It's slightly less well known, but one of the key things he did was to create the brain's trust. Young, relatively, clever people from the best colleges in America who he thought could bring a fresh spin, new ideas on America's problems. And so he was willing to accept his own shortcomings and rely on other expertise to come up with the best way forward. Civil rights with Kennedy, well, he appointed Thurgood Marshall as a federal judge. He also, now this is the key thing Kennedy did, he was one of the first presidents to really step into the civil rights thing. I think at first reluctantly, Eisenhower was definitely reluctantly, but after he saw what happened in Birmingham, Alabama, with the power hoses being set on the children, that's when he seemed to have a change of heart himself to become very, very pro-civil rights. He forced Louisiana to desegregate. He threatened them with federal action if they didn't, and they did. He was a part of the March on Washington. He met the civil rights leaders. He tied himself to that event, and before he died, he introduced the Civil Rights Bill to end things like the Jim Crow laws into Congress, but he died before it would be passed through. So he did a lot in terms of civil rights, and I think in the bit just before he died, in the year or so before he died, he was wholeheartedly for it. The Birmingham had shocked and changed him. Now, here's a significant slide about Kennedy, because it's almost like he was wishing the world he was promising the world to America, should I say, because he brought tax cuts, but at the same time, I think that number is 900 million. And at the same time as tax cuts, he promised a spending spree of $900 million on various things like roads, public buildings, grants to high-tech companies, and also he promised an increase in the minimum wage. So increase in minimum wage, tax away, these two things, they're not really compatible. If you're going to spend a lot, usually, to balance the books, you're going to have to tax a bit more. Now, this does come to affect, to some extent, Johnson, and then the Vietnam War combined with this will really affect Nixon and cause him problems later on. Not so much of a problem for Kennedy. Maybe this is one reason why he was so popular, because he was cutting tax and also spending loads of money. But it was never going to be a long-term solution, and maybe it lacked a bit of foresight on Kennedy's part. There was a boom in the economy at this time. However, it was said that it was fairly dependent on this government spending. You can see who Kennedy sees as somebody to admire, perhaps. Roosevelt. But he's promising a lot there. And in terms of his legacy, things that Kennedy left behind, well, he created the Peace Corps, which is basically young Americans, fresh out of college, being sent to places around the world to help to develop peace between America and foreign countries. It's a noble mission, and it has probably improved links between America and lots of other countries around the world. And it still exists to this day, and the space program brought all sorts of technological advances. The prestige of America advanced by them getting to the moon in the first place, but all of the technology that came with it in terms of travel generally, from the engines, from the technology, from all the things that were needed for the space race, like the computers, for example, all had a knock-on effect later in terms of his legacy. So that's Kennedy. Now to Johnson. We'll start with his civil rights legacy, if you like. I use legacy again, but the civil rights, his record, his track record, because it was Johnson who actually got the Civil Rights Act through Congress. There was no guarantee that Kennedy would have, because he's faced a lot of opposition to it. There's a weird little yellow thing there that seems to be overshadowing things, but he then also managed to pass the Voting Rights Act through Congress, which, didn't have whole-scale support, but, that meant that things like the literacy test, the grandfather test, that it could be said that Johnson achieved more in terms of effective legislation through Congress than any president in history on civil rights. Because there was the amendments at the end of the Civil War, but they on their own didn't prove to be that effective when Reconstruction ended. So he had a very impressive record on civil rights. But there were still black riots that broke out after the Voting Rights Act. I think they were from 64 to 66, which some critics would point to, well, it wasn't all that good, really. He didn't go far enough. But, personally I think that's quite impressive that he managed to get those two things through Congress. And what have we got here? Now, in terms of economy and helping people, it seemed that Johnson had a real desire to help those people less fortunate than himself. The civil rights programs, but also the Appalachian, which is an area around in America. You could think of it a bit like the TVA. It's an area that was struggling. He pumped some money into it. The Head Start program was to help people who were poor, very young, poor children who were being left behind a little bit through economic circumstance. Well, he poured in 1.5 million, is it? 1.5 million or billion? I can't blooming remember. Just give me a second. It says it in the text, but 1.5 billion. So that's quite a lot into the Head Start program to help these poor children, which was part of his program for property, amongst other things as well, like Medicare and Medicaid. If you were really old or really poor, you would really struggle in America. Still now, and certainly before Johnson came along, but this was his attempt to help the old who didn't have the money to care for themselves with some federal funding, and this was to try to aid the poor who couldn't fend for themselves in terms of paying for medical aid and medical treatment. They couldn't afford the health insurance, which is huge in America. So it does seem to be wanting to help these people less fortunate. And some people could call Johnson a copycat, because really what he did is he got mostly what Kennedy had proposed and ran with it. But you see, Kennedy wasn't managed to get a lot of things through Congress. He was struggling to get it through Congress. Johnson managed it. He managed to get loads of things through Congress, and this could be because of his huge size, which was said to dominate people. It was also the Southerner, so it helped to bring the troublesome Southern Democrats on board. But whatever reason, he managed to get a lot of things through Congress. Many of them weren't universally popular. And he also increased minimum wage a little bit himself. Perhaps he wanted to get on the act there, and he created the Model Cities Act, because the inner cities, since the rise of suburbs after the Second World War, the inner cities were really struggling, and this is something that could also relate to the black riots, because it was the inner cities of America where these black riots were generally happening, because it was the poorer areas where these black communities lived. But you see, the problem with Johnson is he had all these grand visions and grand plans, and all this he wanted to do and all this money he wanted to spend, but everything was so overshadowed by Vietnam, which is why I've got that in there. It took more and more of the pot, if you like, the kitty, the money that was available as the presidency went along. It was just eye-watering, the huge amounts of sums of money the American war in Vietnam cost, which just detracted from his domestic program. So, Johnson was Kennedy's vice president. It's understandable that he took a lot of the things that Kennedy did and ran with them as much as he could himself. He also inherited the Vietnam War from Kennedy, who started America down that path. Not to say that he couldn't have stopped it, perhaps, but hey, that's for another lesson. But you can't just take those two apart. Perhaps the reason why Johnson didn't achieve as much despite his lofty aims and ambitions was because of Vietnam sucking the life out of his domestic program. And Kennedy, you could say, may have achieved more if he'd lived, may have achieved more if he was a more effective politician in Washington, able to get things through Congress as effectively as Johnson did. But they're not too dissimilar in their general direction in domestic policy. So there we go. Now, what do you have to do? Well, it's written here. Because what you have to do as your task, as it should be attached to your email, is we're going to, I wanted to set this up in the computer room, but we're going to do it on Thursday in JC1 when it's booked out, period 5. You gotta not pick a president. I've picked you a president already. I've assigned it. You'll see it on the document. It's potluck. I just went down the register, and whoever got the first one is alphabetically at the top of the register. And so you might have got a difficult one, you might have got an easier one. I've done 2 myself, as well as research, make this video, upload this video, and so on and so forth. So you can definitely do one by Thursday, because I've done all of that since last night when we realised I wasn't going to work on Tuesday. So you pick a president and you follow the sheet, and on the sheet it will say best domestic, worst domestic, best foreign, worst foreign, most associated with an overall judgment. And if we all take a president each, we divide all the presidents, we'll have this big document. You need to bring it on Thursday, and by bring it, it might be in your emails, it might be on your OneDrive. It needs to be electronically there, because what you're going to do is you're going to copy and paste your work on whichever president I've assigned you into one big document that we can all access, that we can all use, that we can all revise from. So, I've picked you a president, you don't need to pick one. Just scroll down to Kennedy and Johnson, which is the 2 that I've filled out for you. Also, a little bit of a side, there's a bit of a gap on Eisenhower, and I was wondering if there was anybody feeling particularly keen who might do Eisenhower. I also realised maybe more than one of you might end up doing Eisenhower. So, that's good, isn't it? It means there's another one that you can have ticked off that you will have best knowledge of. So yeah, make sure that's done for Thursday. If you need me, just email. I might be sat with Annie on my knee or whatever. Don't forget to drop your work off. This bit is the work that you're going to do, having listened to me for nearly a quarter of the lesson. Hope I've made that clear. I hope it is all clear, but if it isn't, email me. That's very, very important. And it should take you about 45 minutes to research and do your president for that shared document. And you don't want to be, you don't want to do reams and reams. It's a revision document. You'll see the rough length of what you need to do. And what you do is something that's going to be relied upon by others. So you've got to do a good job. You've got to make it reliable and accurate. And you've got to put some effort into doing it this lesson. There we go.